You're on the air with Air Raid Radio with hosts Amy Loria
and Kara White. Our show features women in aviation, including those who have made history and those who are currently making shockwaves of their own. We are a pre-recorded show. If you'd like to call in and leave a comment, call us at 478-787-4768 or comment on our Facebook page and we will answer them on our next show.
Our show is sponsored by Hemlock Films and Spotlight Business Solutions.
Hold on to your hats. Here comes Air Raid Radio.
You've been warned.
So welcome to Air Raid Radio. You have Kara and Amy once again.
Hello.
Thanks for listening and joining us again. As of this morning, we have all learned the news that AirVenture has been canceled this summer. So, because this, again, as the last couple episodes we've done, is in the middle of the whole coronavirus quarantine. So, the unfortunate side effects are some of our favorite things are getting canceled, and we're not going to get to see all of our aviation friends this summer. So that's kind of a bummer for everyone involved, to say the least.
Yeah, kind of a big bummer.
It's a big bummer. But I don't want to dwell on the negative stuff. So in lieu of a giant air show mega event, you can just listen to our podcast with us talking about women in aviation. And our guest today is Allison Hoyt, who should be like the international woman of aviation, because that gal she does a lot of stuff with a lot of different companies and a lot of different organizations and a lot of different roles. So it's hard to list them all, but we will definitely cover some of the things she does in our interview with her.
We may have to have her back on.
I feel that we won't have enough time to ask her everything we want. There was a very nice Facebook post that kind of gave a little sum up of her. So
we found from the Women in Aviation International Texas chapter, they had a great little write-up about her. It says, Allison Hoyt is a private pilot and a certified aircraft mechanic. Her maintenance experience ranges from the airlines to corporate jets, vintage Warbird restoration to small general aviation aircraft. She is grateful for the critical thinking skills that nearly a decade in aircraft maintenance has bestowed on her, and is excited about introducing girls and women to such an exciting and challenging field. In the words of Rosie the Riveter, the most enduring symbol of wrenching women worldwide, we can do it. And we're so excited to have her on the show today.
Yeah, she sounds like she's got a lot of stuff going on for herself. So
I'm excited. Should we bring her on?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's welcome Allison or Allie Hoyt to the show.
So welcome, Allie. We're so excited to have you here. Thanks for being on the podcast with us today.
Yes, thanks for coming.
I'm excited to be here.
So, Allie, you're a pilot and a mechanic. What got you into aviation?
It's kind of in my blood. My grandfather was an aircraft mechanic in the Navy. In fact, you can still see some airplanes that he worked on at the Naval Air Museum in Pensacola.
That's cool.
My dad was a private pilot. He grew up on a farm. Used to go out and watch the crop dusters goof off after they got done spraying the fields, and thought to himself that looked like a fun thing to do. So he got his private license in college, and then took me for my first small airplane ride when I was 8.
Oh, that's awesome. Wow. And then, so when did you get were you a pilot or were you a mechanic first?
So I was a pilot first. I actually started my flight training in 2008, right before the last economic recession we went through. Okay. And I was able to finish my private, but I didn't have any more money for flight training, and the credit market crashed and I couldn't get any more. So I decided to switch gears a little bit, and I went to A&P school instead, became an aircraft mechanic.
Did you just get your private certificate first, or I guess what ratings do you have now?
So I've gotten my instrument rating, and I'm working on my commercial. I was ready to take my commercial when all of the stuff with the coronavirus started blowing up. So I've had to put that aside for a little bit, but I'm still flying, still working on airplanes. So I'll be all right. We're really close, finally.
That's good. Is your ultimate goal to fly for an airline?
I honestly don't know. I don't think I can answer that question until I get there, but I do want to become an ATP rated pilot. we'll just kind of see what the world looks like when I get there. I stopped making plans for my career path a long time ago.
The world takes you where it needs to go, right?
Yeah.
Basically, yeah. I just drift with the wind.
Yeah, where the wind takes you.
Exactly.
Not a bad plan. What do you like more, being a mechanic or a pilot?
A pilot, absolutely. I appreciate, the behind the scenes knowledge that being a mechanic gives me, and I've always liked solving puzzles, so that part is enjoyable, but my heart has always been in the sky.
Yeah. Well, it gives you a whole different perspective though to have both, being
Oh,
a pilot
absolutely.
and a mechanic.
Right. I think both groups would benefit from a little more kind of cross training with the other group, but
I agree.
yeah, I'm happy to be able to liaise sometimes.
That's very cool. You come from a long line of aviation enthusiasts then.
Mm-hmm. And then
cool.
my dad, my stepmom's father was also a commercial pilot.
Okay.
Okay.
So, yeah, been just surrounded by it.
That's very cool. So
kind of how both Kara and I have been too.
Sort of. Amy a little more than myself, but I'm certainly surrounded by aviation people now, so, which is kind of a bummer. We were discussing earlier, or actually Amy and I woke up this morning and texted each other at the same time that Oshkosh AirVenture was canceled.
Yeah, I got a lot of texts about that.
Yeah. We texted each other at the same time. Because we always, I mean, you as well, you're all over Oshkosh when we're there doing stuff. I was like, I feel like Allie has more things going than we do.
I just get bored easily. That's all it is.
Just got to keep on the move.
I'm really sad that we're not going to see all our friends this year.
Have a virtual air show on Zoom or something. It won't be quite the same because there won't be any flying, but at least we'll get to see each other's faces.
That's true. That's
true.
know,
a lot of different groups have been putting together those kind of things, and it's been really interesting to watch. Like a Sun and Fun group did like the at-home air show.
Oh, cool.
Oh, that's cool.
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to look it up. It's not the same, but we'll take a week and get it right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. We've been talking about doing something like that for the museum too, because we're still closed. And just doing something virtual for everybody to get behind and have a little fun and forget what's going on.
So Allie, when we didn't know you yet, but at the time when we were filming our TV show The Restorers, but we were went and did a story with Tarrant County Community College and their Twin Beach that they had acquired, that they found out that used to belong to Jackie Cochran, and now they at the time when we met them and we did the show, they were still in the very beginning of restoring it, and they were utilizing the kids there who were the students to help teach them about working on the Twin Beach, and they were helping to actually do some of the labor on it. But I understand that you are now involved with that since we've did that filmed that show. So what's your involvement with that program?
So I was living in Tulsa at the time when they began the restoration project. I moved back, found out about it, and got involved right away because I'd always loved that airplane. It was there when I went through the A&P program at TCC.
Oh, okay.
And yep, tail draggers and radial engines have got a special place in my heart always. So it really always made me sad to see her like sitting out there in the elements, like watch birds flying in and out of the scoops, and knowing what she used to be and what she still was. But when I found out about the history behind it, and that the college was actually making an effort to make her airworthy again, I was beyond excited. Showed up, started volunteering. They gave me a title, which was just kind of an all-encompassing. I think that I was called the director of outreach, and it was supposed to be fundraising and social media and all of that sort of rolled into one, just because I was passionate about it and willing to talk to anybody who would listen about how special this aircraft was. I was the one who, we had some leadership changes at the college, and the Beach 18 was no longer a priority for the college, and even to them a liability that they no longer wanted to be involved with. So in looking for a future for this aircraft, I pushed very hard for the Vintage Flying Museum. It's a funny story. Tarrant County College, back when it was Tarrant County Junior College, actually donated a Beech 18, another Beech 18 that they had, to the museum. And there was some kind of mix-up. I think originally it was supposed to be Jackie's Beech 18, but they wound up getting another one instead that was in like navy colors. So, but the aircraft made its way home eventually. It took a while for some legal process to be put in place to where the aircraft could be donated. Needed to go to a nonprofit. There had to be some language written into some of the rules that allowed the aircraft, which is taxpayer property, to be just given to a nonprofit. But the school was great about working with us in that regard. I'm happy that they gave the aircraft a future that wasn't just about like how much money is this worth like on the open market, because as an airworthy aircraft, which it isn't, like it wasn't worth very much. But to those of us who love history, the aircraft is worth a great deal.
Yeah.
So I was the one who approached the director of maintenance at the museum, a great guy named Bill Gorin, about the aircraft, because the aircraft, the museum is a wonderful place, but it's mostly kind of a housing unit for other aircraft operators. There's 2 CAF squadrons in there. There's several aircraft there that have private owners, and they provide a great workspace for those owners. I'm a tenant of the museum myself. I have a 1940 Porterfield project that lives in a back shop there.
That's cool.
But
yeah,
right.
It sounds like a pretty
the museum
big
was
facility.
founded.
Yeah.
It's huge. It's the hangar was purpose built to hold 2 B-29s.
It's a giant hangar. I've been there.
Yeah,
We've been there
it only
a couple
holds
times.
1 B-29.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. But so the aircraft was built around the acquisition of a B-17 Flying Fortress that was at the time known as Chucky. I believe it was Madras Maiden, and it's been sold since then. Maybe not Fuddy Duddy. I'd have to remember what the new name is. But anyway, the aircraft was sold some years ago, and since then, the museum has not owned and operated an aircraft of its own since that time. So
that's interesting.
The more Bill thought about it, the more that kind of seemed attractive to him, and he approached the owner of the museum, Chucky Hospers, who the B-17 was named for, because her husband bought it. He basically told people who were nervous about him buying a B-17 without consulting his wife that he would just spray paint her name on the side of it and she'd let him keep it.
Perfect.
So,
oh boy.
That's how Chucky came to be named Chucky. But Chucky and the museum have done incredible things as far as like outreach goes. And we want to make the aircraft, not only a good ride program aircraft for people who want to come and experience the museum, but also make it the centerpiece of kind of an educational outreach. Since aviation is so important to the history of Fort Worth, the Dallas-Fort Worth area in general, but Fort Worth in particular. So that's how,
cool.
Yeah. So they've, got the wheels turning, and the museum, put forth the effort to put a proposal to the college, and the college, found it acceptable, and we got the aircraft last June, I think it was.
Okay.
Very cool.
What's the state of the aircraft? Does it still need a lot of work?
Oh yeah. We've cleared our 2 biggest hurdles for a return to service. We passed a very important wing spar AD. It's one of the things, if we hadn't passed it, the aircraft was never going to fly again. To replace a wing spar is basically like trying to do spine transplant surgery.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but we passed that inspection.
Congratulations.
And we've been planned. Thank you. We also had a large sheet metal repair to do in the tail, because the aircraft had a lavatory in it, but it was the honey bucket system, and some leaks happened, and it sat outside, so like water collected in the back, and all this stuff mixed together for a very corrosive cocktail. And but we've gotten that repair mostly done. There are still some hard to reach rivets that need to be put in, but those are our two biggest hurdles. So now we're kind of having to start over from scratch towards the end of the airplane's time with the college.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of things got moved around and misplaced and shuffled. And one of the things we lost was a lot of the inspection paperwork that we had done for the aircraft.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but it's also, we've got a new team, we've got a new group of people, so it's good for us to kind of start from the beginning. So we're basically still very much in an inspection phase with the aircraft, trying to get a handle for everything that does need to be done. We do have things in work currently. We've rebuilt the tail gear assembly on the aircraft.
Mm-hmm.
We know we need to overhaul the main gear, but we've had the props overhauled. We're in the process of getting our fuel tanks welded to address any leaks, and Southwest Aero Tankers is putting new bladders in for us.
That's cool.
So those are the big things that we've got going now. But we've got quite a ways to go.
Yeah. So
how many people do you have working on it?
It varies. It seems like from month to month. It's been hard to get anything consistent going because over the winter, there are other aircraft in the hangar that kind of took precedence. But once we get kind of a consistent system going, once we finish the inspection phase and we can sort of put together a honey-do list for the airplane, we can start designating stuff. We've got a core group of volunteers that have followed this aircraft over from the college, a lot of retired teachers from the A&P program who just have years and years of incredibly valuable experience. Several of whom I believe were featured in the Restorers program, Kurt Landrum being chief among them.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I get updates from Kurt a lot. So I do kind of...
I'm sure you do.
Yeah, I do. I am still following the progress. So what is the purpose of, once the plane's restored, then what?
So, like I said, it'll be a ride aircraft for the museum, something that does generate some revenue to support its own operation and maintenance and to support the museum. But we're talking about a lot of different possibilities for the aircraft. Like I said, an educational centerpiece, STEM outreach programs to the local schools. And it's a great thing to be able to do in Tarrant County to kind of get kids excited about aviation, because you have this excellent public institution that you can point them to in Tarrant County College that not only has an aviation maintenance program, but also has a flight program now.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
That's good.
We want to get kids excited about aviation as a career field. And that, you don't just have to be a pilot or a mechanic in aviation. You can be an engineer, you can be in sales, you can do all kinds of things. And they'll never be short of jobs in this particular part of the country either.
Right.
Oh yeah, we discussed.
We have two. Right.
Yeah.
We have two major airlines headquartered here. Southwest Airlines, American, Bell Helicopters here. Lockheed Martin is here. Like, there's so many, and so, all the tinier businesses that support those larger ones that make parts, that design interiors, all of that. It's all tied together here, and it's a workforce. It's an industry that's going to need to grow its workforce over the years continually.
Yeah. I wonder if Texas has more cowboys or airplanes or aviation jobs.
It might be more airplanes by this point, honestly.
Yeah, for sure. I know that's one thing that Adam and I discussed when we were doing the Restorers episodes, because I was looking up when I first read about this story, and we were trying to do an episode that would be themed about women in aviation and throughout history, and I was reading, I'm like, oh, this is cool, like they've got a Twin Beach that used to belong to Jackie Cochran, and then I was like, hey, guess where it's at? It's in Texas again, because we've been there so many times to do so many airplane stories, so
right,
we're very familiar with Texas now.
It seems to be a place that we all keep going back to, and there's a ton of aviation stuff up here in the Twin Cities, but we always end up back in Texas.
We're always in Texas.
Yep. There's so much, there's so much history here too. Like, it was a very popular place to build Army Air Corps fields, because you had all this flat land and open
Right.
space pretty much everywhere you looked. And
Yeah.
And the weather is a lot nicer than, here in the wintertime.
Yeah. I think I read something.
certain parts of the year.
I think I read something.
Certainly more conducive to flying.
No,
Right.
yeah, absolutely. Year round there, much more than up here.
Right.
But yeah,
Right.
I think I read an article about a World War II veteran who was in the Air Corps, and there was a note in the article where it was like, surprisingly, he didn't have to go to any training bases in Texas.
That was pretty rare.
Yeah, exactly. I know my grandfather was in at least a couple of them. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
But anyways, so like when you're doing the education program with the Twin Beach, are you also using that to tell the story of Jackie and the Wasp, or is that
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. I was neglectful in not mentioning that part. We definitely want to honor the memory of Jackie and the Wasp and highlight the things that they were able to do, even though the odds were definitely stacked against them.
Mm-hmm.
Jackie not only being a great aviator, but also like an incredibly accomplished businesswoman. A lot of the Wasp went on to do really incredible things, including, I mentioned Bell Helicopter earlier. One of the Wasps who flew the B-29, and you may be able to help me out with this, Kara, I'm blanking on her name, but one of the Doras became the first female test pilot for Bell aircraft.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, it's Dora and Dee Dee. Daltrey was one of them. And Adam's doing a quick look up. My memory is so bad. You know how many times I've told this story?
Dory.
What's that?
My brains were
Doherty.
so full
Dora
of, like,
Doherty.
Dora Doherty.
Yep.
And what? Dee
Doherty.
Dee.
Okay.
I want to say it's Dee Dee Mormon? Sure. God, this is terrible. I have the worst. I think quarantine is making my brain remember even less than it normally does. Every time we do anything, I'm oh, what's the name of that thing that I talk about all the time and I know so much about?
That's Dee Dee Mormon.
I thought Mormon. Yay. I had it right. But yes, so Dee Dee and Dora. Sorry, Allie, you may continue.
Yep. So Dora was the one who... I think Dora was the one, she was the one who went to work for Bell. I think she was also the first female head of an engineering department there.
Mm-hmm.
So just there's a lot of incredible stories to be told, and, especially to underrepresented populations in aviation. Right. We definitely want to be an inspiration to those groups.
Mm-hmm.
And what a cool way to
and
be
make
able
the
to
airplane
do it
an important part of that. Yeah. Oh yeah. And I love, it doesn't hurt that it's a Beech 18. I love the
They're
Beech 18.
great.
Yeah, that's what we so short quick personal story. When Adam and I got married, we got married at the MAPS Air Museum, and they're like, "Oh, cool. What plane do you want to get married in front of? We'll move it out onto the tarmac for you." And we're like, "Really?" And so we're like, the Beech 18.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. You guys have excellent taste.
So I was like,
Not
if we ever had the funds, that's the one we would like to have.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
a beautiful airplane, but you can transport all your friends with you.
Yeah, I know. We were like, it'd be the Hemlock Express.
And film equipment. It's a cargo plane, too.
Yes.
Right, exactly.
Well, and I think another thing that makes the Beech 18 special was it was developed by a company that was run by a woman, Olive Ann Beach.
Oh, yeah.
I did
Oh,
not know
yeah.
that. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Olive took over the company when her husband, Walter Beach, died, but was responsible for developing some of the most enduring aircraft designs in history. When the Beech 18 ended its production run, I think it held the record for most produced aircraft of any type.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And that might
Yeah,
be
I
a
forgot
civilian
about that.
record, because I know that the military numbers were high, but there were so many Beech 18s that were made and that still endure to this day.
Yeah.
There are a lot of them out there.
We did an interview actually with one of our air racers in the Beyond the Powder movie that we made, and she used to work for Beech in this, I want to say in the 60s, and I'm probably getting this wrong, But she told me, it's not in the movie, but that she had to fly in heels.
Oh man,
Boy.
I would not want to do that.
And I was like, oh, I would have kicked him off. And I was like, did you kick him off? She's like, no, I wore them on the runners, and it was fine. And she's like, and she goes, and that was all of beach made us do that they had to wear dresses and heels.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Jackie, you know, not letting the girls out of the airplane unless they combed their hair and touched up their lipstick first.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Which we could talk a little bit about Jackie, because we haven't really yet.
oh, we
And-
should.
Yeah.
So she was an air racer, record setter, business executive in the beauty industry, and she, of course, helped start the WASP program. And she was the first woman to break the sound barrier. I think I covered most of. I'm sure
Yeah.
I'm missing something, but
She was first.
yeah. So is that something that that you actively do with the program, is try and teach people about Jackie, or you just know a lot about her?
That's the plan. Yeah.
Mhm.
Is teach people about her life, you know, talk about her humble beginnings, and just really highlight her determination to succeed at all costs. I think one of the greatest things I think I ever heard her say, and that I think might strike a nerve with a lot of people, is that she had never been so poor that she couldn't have had less. And so, like, she knew, like, she had survived that. And so anything else that happened to her, like, it didn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah. I was kind of just going over her bio again this week for this interview. And I think her story is super fascinating, just as a human being.
Yeah. I mean, she got some advantages along the way, but she worked hard for them, and she maximized what she was able to do with them. You know, there are a lot of people that get resources and legs up and don't really do much with them, but Jackie was always striving to do more.
Yeah, she was definitely a very determined person. You can tell that from everything that she did, and it's kind of really and
it kind of shows in people's like relations to her, because she was very polarizing. Like, it was very much a love or hate relationship with Jackie.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, from all the research that we've been doing when we were doing the Rise Above Wasp movie, you're like, oh, interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a lot of people, like you said, Allie, a lot of people either loved her or hated her. You know, there wasn't a whole lot of in between.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I can see, like, there's times where I'll learn something about her and I'm like, oh, that's not cool, Jackie, not cool. But then you're like,
oh, yeah, I've had many of those moments.
But
I guess you got to do what you got to do, right?
Yeah.
To get the job done and get things done.
Yeah. And we asked every WASP we interviewed for that project about Jackie, because they're like, what'd you think about Jackie? And everyone was up and down. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for her. Like,
Yeah.
they're like,
Sure.
say what
Determination
you
and
will
drive.
about everything, anything and everything, but they're like, we wouldn't have existed if it wasn't for her pushing for this. So
Yeah.
Right.
You gotta have those people with the determination and drive to get things done and to keep pushing
Absolutely.
and keep going farther.
yeah. So
And it was really hard on her when she had to stop flying. Like, if you read her, you have to read her memoirs, The Stars at Noon. But then Marianne Buckley Brigham, I think it is, put together a book called Jackie Cochran, an Autobiography. It's not a strict autobiography in the sense that it's solely Jackie's words. She took from Jackie's memoirs, some later writings that Jackie did, and then interviews and letters from people who knew her, and kind of put together this bigger picture of her life. It's an excellent read. I cried at several points towards the end of the book. But she talks about when she had to stop flying. She had heart issues. She had a botched surgery when she was younger. She really liked gin. She really liked smoking.
I think
So-
pretty much all of them did.
Yeah.
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 We are going to have a sidebar. We're going to have a wet bar, or not a wet bar. It'll be a dry bar, but it'll be a mini bar in the aircraft, because that's what the original layout was like, and we're always gonna have gin in there in honor of Jackie.
Awesome. That'll be great.
Yeah, it's a little like the Doolittle writers with their Hennessy. So.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But Jackie lived on this huge ranch out in the Coachella Valley, which has since actually been turned into a subdivision that I've been to. Her house is still standing. It's just one of the country club houses.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Oh, it's fantastic. You got to go.
That's cool.
Like, I mean, it looks nothing like, the interior has been gutted, but still to just kind of walk on the grounds is neat. But she had a telescope on her front lawn, and she said that after she was grounded, she used to go out on her lawn in the middle of the night and look at the stars through the telescope and cry because she couldn't go up there and be with the stars anymore. But then apparently one day she said to herself, "This is stupid," and she bought an RV and just started driving around the country.
Awesome.
You got to keep moving forward, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she did.
Yeah, I mean, that's got to be.
When did she stop flying?
Say what?
When did she stop flying? How old was she?
That's a tricky question because no one actually knows how old Jackie really is. Like, there's a big debate as to how old she actually was. Mm-hmm. But I can tell you what year she stopped flying because it was 1971.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That was when she sold the Beech 18.
Mm-hmm.
This was one of the, I've done a lot of research about Jackie during this time, and this is one of the things that really gets me. She sold the aircraft in 1971. Fun fact, she sold it to Merv Griffin. Yeah.
Sweet.
Merv Griffin was the guy who owned that airplane next. But anyway, she sold the aircraft in 1971. She had owned it for almost 2 years at that point. And if you look at the logbook, she wasn't flying alone at that point. She always had somebody with her because she kind of understood her limitations. She had scared herself in a helicopter a few years before that. And after that, always had somebody in the cockpit with her when she flew. And if she ever filled out the logbook herself, she would usually just put her initials. It's a relatively, I think, accepted fact that Jackie didn't like her handwriting. She didn't learn to read until she was almost a teenager, I think, and I don't think she learned to write until after that.
Mm-hmm.
So she was always insecure about her handwriting and preferred to type. She didn't even like dealing with written stuff. She actually convinced the FAA, or the CAA, the predecessor to the FAA, to let her take her written exam orally because she knew her stuff, but having to deal with writing just freaked her out so much.
Oh my gosh.
So she never wrote her full name in the logbook except for the very last flight before the thing gets sold. And that flight is from Albuquerque, New Mexico to Thermal, California. She lived in Thermal. Her cardiologist was in Albuquerque. And the reason she had to stop flying was because the doctor told her she was going to need a pacemaker.
Oh my gosh.
And so our theory is she gets the news about the pacemaker. She flies her airplane home one last time, signs her name in the book, and then
that's it.
She's done. Yeah.
Sees it off. Yep.
Oh man.
According to Wikipedia, she was born in 1906, but who knows?
I think that's
right.
What makes that's it's just super fascinating that the fact that there's just this vagueness about who she was before she changed her name to Jackie Cochran and then being this person of note throughout aviation history, and then now you're told you can't fly anymore, and not having that taken away from you. So I think it's a very fascinating story to go through that psyche and what that does to a person, I guess.
I think it's amazing though that she, after all of that, decided, you know what, I'm gonna drive around in my RV. She wasn't gonna let it keep her down. She found something else, right?
Yeah,
I think that's a good lesson.
There's another thing, right? Amy, do you fly?
I'm working on it.
Okay.
Yeah,
working on it.
That totally counts.
My student.
But there's kind of
for my student license.
Oh, that's awesome. Fantastic. But there's kind of a sentiment that gets passed around among aviators, when we're taking a moment to kind of impart wisdom to each other. And one of the things that we tell people is, you know, one day you're going to take your last flight. And if you're lucky, you're going to know beforehand that it is your last.
Yep.
And it seems like Jackie did. And I think that's a blessing for her, and something I think we should all be able to aspire to kind of know, like, when it's time to stop.
Yeah, and you can have
and
that
just kind
nice,
of rest.
Yeah. Have a nice goodbye.
And kind of rest in knowing that, like, that you did everything you wanted to do, because she did everything.
She did.
She wanted to do, you know.
Yeah.
She wanted to fly high and fast and far, and she got it all done.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, a life well lived. I'm sure she would say.
Most definitely.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
So Allie, you had mentioned briefly in your talking about the vintage wings, right? The museum.
The Vintage Flying Museum.
Vintage Flying Museum. Sorry. That you have a 1944 project that's yours?
It's 1940. It's a 1940 Porterfield Collegiate. If you're not familiar with the aircraft type, it's basically a tall, skinny Cub.
Oh, that's cool. And there's
only about 30 flying in the world currently. Mine is a project plane. It's in pieces in one of the back shops. I've had it for a few years. I've not had a lot of time or money to work on it, but you know, little bits here and there, and you know, it's mine. Like, it's paid off. You know,
that's cool.
The museum is a great place to rent from. So
that's cool. You said a Porterfield Collegiate.
A Porterfield Collegiate. Yep.
It's a cool looking airplane. Here, Kara, I'm going to show you.
Yeah.
We
nice.
have a little screen share set up, so I can like.
That's cool.
Nice. Faces at Kara, so we can see each other.
Yeah. I don't know which paint scheme you're looking at, but I'm going to go with the red and silver one.
Yeah. Yep. This one's red and silver. Yep. Yeah. So,
it'll be a beautiful plane.
I'm going to name the airplane. Right. I've named the airplane after my late mother, and she was a redhead. So red and silver it is.
Oh, that's very cool.
What's her name?
Maggie Lou.
Oh, I like it.
Yeah,
that's a good name.
Great.
Sorry, I just lost my. Oh, so, geez, Allie, you are just a woman with many roles in aviation. Every time I see you, you're always got something new going, or I run into you working at something in Oshkosh that I had no idea you were working at.
We drive down to Sweetwater to help out with the WASP documentary.
Yeah, Allie was part of the film Rise Above WASP. She's one of our featured extras in it. So, which was nice that you got to come see it before this whole pandemic started. That we had to.
And I got my cool crew shirt that everybody is still super jealous of.
They are pretty cool shirts.
Yeah. So, Adam
I wore it. Sarah, did you see that photo? I wore it to the Flight Suit Social at Women in Aviation this year, and I took a photo in that shirt with astronaut Eileen Collins.
Nice. Yes, you did send that to me. So we've had the chance to interview Eileen Collins for a project with the National Aviation Hall of Fame, and the whole time I was just geeking out. Or I'm like, oh my god.
Oh yeah.
I'm interviewing Eileen Collins.
And she's so nice.
She's so nice.
So sweet.
She brought her I want to get the words right. Her blue jacket. It would be her flight jacket, right?
Her NASA flight jacket.
Yeah. For the interview, she's like, "Do you want me to wear this?" And I was like, "Can I wear it?"
Can I touch it?
Oh my gosh. I was so excited. But that's very cool.
I got her to sign my logbook.
Oh, that's cool.
Nice. Very, very cool. But
that's what I do with my aviation heroes. So every WASP that I've ever met, I've had sign my logbook.
Oh, cool. I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what for our listeners who don't know, Adam and I made crew t-shirts for the cast and crew of The Rise Above WASP, and the front of them has a quote from Elise Rohr, who is one of the WASP, and she had a story about her mother who did not want her to be flying airplanes, and she's like, how dare, like, you don't want to be tumbling around in an airplane wearing pants. And Elise is like, I said, mother. She's like, my mother said it just wasn't ladylike, and I said, too bad. So the front of the shirt says, it's just not ladylike, and I said, too bad. And then the back has this beautiful illustration that Lena Haller, who is our art director on this film as well, she designed the shirt, and we handed them out to everybody at when we were at Oshkosh last year, because we were having like a special screening, and Allie was getting offers of cash, a lot of cash to give them her t-shirt.
Yeah. $100 cash, like on the spot for my shirt.
That's funny.
Yeah, she texted me that, and I was like, did you take it?
No, absolutely not.
So we're discussing if there will be making more of the t-shirts.
Another run.
Another run for purchases for the people who were not part of the production that didn't get them.
They are pretty cool.
But yeah, so got to see the movie then? So Allie, did you enjoy seeing yourself on the screen?
That part I was kind of used to because I had like that theater background. Yeah.
Sure.
That wasn't unusual. I was so happy to be part of it, and I was just so impressed and thrilled with how well it turned out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I cried multiple times. I mean, you remember, like, I told you back in May when you guys did kind of the smaller screening.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't like it wasn't quite done.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
we did a rough cut screening. Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, and I cried then. But then, like, to have that wraparound screen and like watch the airplane like fly overhead, like across that whole big stretch of blue sky, it was fantastic.
Yeah, that's something that just us putting that together, I cried a lot.
You told me that, yeah.
Yeah, like when we watch it, I cry. When I talk about it, I cry. Like, need to cut that out a little bit. But you think I'd be used to it, but it just gets me.
Well, it's so emotional. I get chills every time I think about it. You know, just the.
I was so excited for this year for it to start going around and people actually being able to see it and experience their story. And with the whole coronavirus outbreak, it's been put on hold, and it's just kind of a little heartbreaking because I want the women, the WASP who are still surviving, to like have that,
be able to see it.
Yeah, sure.
Be able to experience other people seeing
worried
it.
About them.
Yeah, and I guess I get a lot of anxiety about that, and I'm like, it's out of your control. Right. And we have we did send screeners to all the WASP that were in it so that they could see it. Because I know
that's great.
That they wouldn't necessarily be able to see the trailer or, as the aforementioned, they're getting older. So,
do we know how many WASPs are still with us?
I know there's less than 100, but I don't.
Are there?
I want to say it's less than 80.
It's less than 30 now.
Oh, is it that?
Really?
Okay, I know my stat was from years ago.
I saw Kimberly Johnson. I saw Kimberly Johnson from the Texas Women's University WASP Archive at Women in Aviation, and I think I remember her telling me less than 30, and that was in March. So
yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, it's so important to have that. Well, let's switch gears a little bit. Allie, when you came down to be an extra, you showed up just dressed to the nines, you had your hair done in period dress. Do you do reenacting at all, or is it just comes with the territory of all of the love of history?
So I don't officially do reenacting, but I am an avid swing dancer.
Oh, awesome.
And
so that's where that comes from.
That's where the aesthetic comes from. And I also, I don't want to say I'm a hoarder, because it's not hoarding if your stuff is cool, but like,
if it's worth something, it's not hoarding, right?
No.
Right, yeah. Exactly. Well, I mean, there's a line that you can definitely cross, but I have been collecting World War II flight suits for years. I'll look for them in antique shops. Like, I'll look on eBay, and I go for the smaller sizes, and those are a little bit easier to find because, as we talked about with Adam, people were smaller back then, so it's hard. Right. Like, a lot of guys just don't have 38-inch chests anymore, so those suits are a little easier to come by, a little bit more affordable. So I've got a huge collection of those, which I brought out to the filming so we could have more.
Helpful.
Yeah.
Helpful.
Oh, yes. Thank you so much.
Put in a suitcase.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, thank you so much, Allie, for being a part of that. Like, up and down, all the extras that volunteered their time to come do that was amazing. So we're very appreciative.
I was so happy to.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah, so I, through kind of swing dancing, that the vintage aesthetic is easy to come by, and so you learn things like how to pin curl your hair and, you know, how to do a wing dye and everything. So that was a handy background. I've never done any official reenacting. I don't feel like I have the time or money to get specific enough for the taste of a lot of reenactors, because there are a lot of people who will be like, you know, you're wearing a flight suit from 1941 and that patch is from 1940 and the two would not have been together in the same uniform. Like, I don't want to necessarily deal with that stuff.
Yeah. Oh,
but,
totally.
When the airplane was still at Tarrant County College, we would wheel it out to the flight line for the annual air show at Alliance Airport in Fort Worth, and I would always put on one of the flight suits to work the booth, because I believe visual representation is
absolutely,
like, the importance of it cannot be overstated.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I want little girls walking around the show to, like, see a woman in a flight suit and just kind of have that switch flip in their brain that says, like, oh, okay, girls can do this too.
That's one of the conversations Adam and I have all the time, is that it's like representation matters. Like, you don't even have to be doing anything. Like, they just have to see you.
No.
Transport them back.
Well, and so I got told, I'm part of the 99s. I'm actually newly elected Fort Worth vice chair.
Nice. Congratulations.
For my chapter. Thank you. I ran unopposed, so you know, big victory. But
still counts.
At that air show, one of the years I brought my pink toolbox. I like to say that I'm aggressively feminine in male-dominated spaces. So, pink toolbox, red lipstick, skirts when I can get away with it. But I brought that toolbox to the show one year, and apparently this girl saw it, came over and started talking to me and asking questions. And I was, you know, I'm very much a cheerleader for, like, anybody that I even see the tiniest bit of a spark. I'm like, okay, you, like, I'm going to get you. And, like, even if they don't come away from it, like, necessarily, like, just aching for a career in aviation, like, I've planted that seed, and it's a little victory every time you kind of open somebody's eyes to the notion that, like, you know, this is a space that women can not only, like, succeed in, but thrive in.
Yeah.
And so, well, apparently this girl, I think she was 15 at the time, she told her mom on the way home from the air show, I'm going to be a pilot. And 2 years later, this girl and her mom show up at my 99 meeting. And her mom messaged me about this, like, at the end of that meeting. And I was, I just, like, I couldn't deal with it, you know, like, it's just so nice to know that, like, all your efforts and all your striving, like, even if you don't get to see it, because, you know, what if they had joined the Dallas chapter or something? Like, I never would have known that, like, I had made a difference in this person's life. And this girl is, she's going to be an airline pilot before I am. Like, she is so dedicated and so laser focused. Like, she has a plan and she is executing it. And, like, I kind of might need to take some pointers from her. She's killing it. And I'm so excited for her, because aviation is the kind of thing that changes people's lives. It's changed mine time and time again. And I want to use every avenue possible to continue to spread that message.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I'm excited about the possibilities with this airplane, like, you know, what it can be and whose eye it can draw, and how it can change people.
And who you can inspire. That's really, I don't know.
No,
That's why I
love
volunteer
that.
with the CAF up here.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, there's been many times we've done stuff that, when we're done doing a presentation, like, all the girls or women will flock to me to talk about stuff. And I'm like, okay, I don't really know that much about aviation, but and Adam's like, it doesn't matter. You're there and you have represented it. And I'm like, okay. But no, that's a great story. I love, even just like we discussed too, like, even if you can just get one, like, one is a victory. So that's fantastic. And I know we're coming up on our scheduled end time for our show, but I wanted to ask you, Allie, about Operation Airdrop and your involvement with them, because it sounds pretty cool.
Okay.
Yeah. What is Operation Airdrop?
Operation Airdrop is a 501c3 nonprofit based in the state of Texas that exists to organize general aviation assets in the aftermath of a natural disaster.
Okay.
Oh.
We activate when something has happened that interrupts the normal supply chain that allows people to receive life-sustaining goods, food, water, medicine. If you cannot get those things on a truck or via a major shipping channel, we will fly them to you.
Oh, that's fantastic.
That is our chief mission statement right there, is to help people who can't be helped in any other way.
And
utilizing the massive network of general aviation that we have in this country.
That's fantastic.
That's very cool.
So it's just people with their private planes that are helping out with this?
Yeah, for the most part. We've gotten a couple of larger companies involved. LabCorp and Quest Diagnostics both have fleets of PC-12s that they have used to run missions for us. A couple of major NASCAR contractors let us use what were basically regional jets in response to Hurricane Florence. But we'll use something as small. I've sent 150 pounds of dry food and toilet paper on a Citabria before. So.
Oh wow,
Really?
That's fantastic.
That's cool.
That's what Amy's learning to fly, right?
Yeah, that's what
Amy's
I'm learning to fly.
familiar.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you know how big it is in there.
Right. It's not very big. So
Yeah.
That's impressive. How did you get involved with the
Right.
organization?
So it was actually founded by a guy named Doug Jackson. He lives in the North Texas area. He lives on a grass strip northwest of town, and he flies a 340 with a STOL kit on it. It's a pretty impressive airplane.
Nice.
He has to, because he lives on a 2,400 foot strip, and he flies a twin out of it.
That's awesome.
But he had several. This was it was the aftermath of Hurricane Harvey. I don't know if you remember much about kind of what the days following Harvey were like, but it took over a month for the floodwaters to completely recede.
Wow.
Once the rain had stopped. So Doug had some friends on the coast and had organized a supply drive, and he was driving things down in a trailer, and got there and delivered the supplies. But when he was down there and he was able to kind of take stock of what was going on around him, he realized there were several communities that still had no access to supplies because the roads had either been washed out, or they were on islands and the bridges were destroyed, or were still underwater. So there were a lot of people who couldn't get help and didn't know how they were going to get it, and
Wow.
didn't know when it was coming. And aviation, I think if you're doing it right, it's a great community experience. You meet friends in the business, you're in that mode where you kind of want to help each other out. And so he got home, put out a Facebook post, bought a radio ad, made a post on Beach Talk Forum, and I said, I have this crazy idea. I'm gonna fly supplies down to these coastal towns that can't get help otherwise.
Yeah, that's great.
And in 8 days, that was day one. 8 days later, we had delivered 250,000 pounds of goods.
Holy
Oh my
cats,
gosh,
man.
That's awesome.
Yeah. That's
the coast.
fantastic. What a great
I was
organization.
actually, I know. Well, thank you. I was out of town when the call originally went out, but as soon as I got back into town, they had kind of commandeered a conference room at the municipal airport in Denton, Texas, which is where Texas Women's University is. And we were basically running a borderline, kind of sketchy, cargo dispatch operation. I mean, the only thing that really saved us from not being a de facto 135 operator was that all of these pilots were buying their own gas and just, doing everything on their own bill.
Oh my gosh.
And we were basically kind of like an information clearinghouse, at that nerve center in Denton, we're like, okay, this town has a warehouse full of supplies and they've got an airport. All right, we can send people to this airport, and then they've got to take it to, this airport where people have needed all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And over the years, we've just kind of learned to fine tune that model.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we responded to, I think 5 or 6 hurricanes.
Wow. Yeah, that's
5 hurricanes since Harvey.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a wonderful organization to be a part of. Being able to use aviation to do good for people is fantastic.
Absolutely. They had set up a website, like once they figured out like people were really, this idea was taking off.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody had set up a website that had like a contact box, and then nobody had ever checked the email for the contact box. So when I showed up, like my first task was basically answering somewhere in the neighborhood of 100 emails.
Wow.
From all these guys who had aircraft that were wanting to help.
Yeah.
So
You gotta remember to check the
Google
inbox.
Sheet database, and just started plugging numbers in and making phone calls.
That's fantastic.
Wow.
Today, my title with the organization, we're a 501c3 now. We filed paperwork for that. And we have a board and we have a staff, and I'm on staff as a communications director. I kind of help run the Facebook page, any press releases, any communication with the press, any kind of outreach. I mostly run that for the organization now. But I have gotten to fly some missions. It took a while, but with Hurricane Dorian, we had a very muted response, and I was actually able to go out and fly some of the missions for that in the Bahamas. And it was, everybody's right. It's the best flying you'll ever do.
Wow.
I can imagine. Well, it looks like we're out of our allotted time for our podcast. So thank you. I know.
This has been great.
I know. There's more questions I'd ask you. But thank you so much, Allie, for taking the time to chat with us and sharing a little inspiration for people out there, especially now when we're all kind of grounded a little bit. So yeah, thanks for being part of our show.
I was happy to do it.
All right. Thanks again for listening, and thanks to Allie for being our guest. One thing to mention, the Vintage Flying Museum is in need of donations to help with the restoration of the Twin Beach. And I think they have a Rosie the Riveter Garden that they are still working on. But if you are interested or so moved to help that project out, you can donate at vintageflyingmuseum.org. And we will share all that information, including about the Rosie the Riveter Garden that they've got going on our Facebook page as well. Thanks again to Allie for being our guest on our show today, and thanks to all of you for listening. And as we mentioned, Allie was a part of the Rise Above Wasp, which hopefully will start playing again this year when things are not canceled all the time. Check out
Which will be soon.
I know.
Hopefully. I can feel it.
Hopefully. Check out our Facebook page for more information. And thanks to Adam White, for our recording engineer, for all his awesome help.
You're welcome.
And thank you to Hemlock Films and Spotlight Business Solutions as well. Thanks, everybody.
Yay! And thanks for listening to Air Raid Radio, and we'll catch you the next time.